He belonged to a gang of boys that were rough and ready. And he was the Casanova of the neighborhood, I'm telling you. He was the one all the girls went for, and the guys had a lot of respect for him. And his father was a fireman he got hurt on the job. He was a nut and a drunk. I didn't like Mr. Cook at all. He was a brute. But Bill took care of the family, and she got a pension from the fire department for the rest of it. Really, my first boyfriend was my first husband, Bill.
How did you guys start dating?
I was going to babysit, and they lived right next door. And I said, I wanted my hair cut that night. My mother said, well, Aunt Helen wants you to babysit for her. So I said, okay, I'll go and babysit, because we babysat for the relatives for free. And so I was going to walk over there, and Bill was over at the house. They only lived a door away. And I was always stopping at their porch talking to Grandma in hopes that Bobby would come out, because they had lived right beside us on Maston. Then when we moved back on Ferry Street, we were just one door apart again.
Okay, so how did you guys start dating?
Oh, the babysitting.
Yeah.
He said, oh, well, I didn't like Bill then. He liked my older sister, both of them. And the one in between us, she really liked him. Marion was always, she's like me, she liked the boys. But Faith was more real timid, you know. But she was the pretty one. Bill used to come over and tell stories to my mother. He was such a big mouth. I didn't like him at all. I thought that big mouth, you know, bragger.
Yeah.
Well, he offered to come and cut my hair when I babysat. Well, now my mother should have known better. She should have said, no, I'll cut it when I get time. Well, she said, that's a good idea. So he came over to Aunt Helen's and cut my hair, but he got fresh too. And boys, I just enjoyed it. I used to buy little trucks and put root beer barrel candies in it. And things like that, you know, when you're in love, all the stuff you do. Well, I mean, when you're first in love, your love grows deeper. Bill, I thought, oh, he's a man. He's 4 years older than you are when you're that age. That was the start of my courtship, and I went with him about a year and a half. We got engaged in a Thanksgiving, and then we got married the following June, because I was 2 months pregnant. Our wedding, yeah, that was the next day after we were married. That's on the 21st. See, that Aunt Marion lived up there. Somebody's in the window. I think that was her baby that Mrs. Calvin was holding. I had pictures taken the next day because we were married Saturday night and there was nobody to take pictures.
Oh yeah?
So
all these pictures are all the next day. Oh, was it your camera?
Yeah, my box camera, my first box camera that Kodak gave them away to everybody born in 1918.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, they gave them away hoping everyone would buy film?
No, it was an anniversary of that something or other. So my friend and I were both born, and Annie Hennessy was born, and we both got a box camera. And you were rich to have a camera.
Yeah.
And that box camera took a lot of pictures. Well, the next day we went over to Marion and Charlie's house because they stood up for us, and they took the pictures, and the night before it was too dark and we didn't have flashes on them. We didn't have a reception or anything. My friends, like the lady that I worked for, I remember she gave us a bedspread for, oh boy, them things were really cherished, and that was an expensive gift. And we went to my mother's, and my mother's house was always full of junk, ironing and everything all over the place. But anyhow, we left them on the buffet, and we went in the little rented car that we had. It was one of his friend's cars. We drove down to the falls with Marion and Charlie, and Charlie had to get home because he was in such misery. Of course, Bill was anxious to get home. And then we drove back, and I stayed at my mother's house because his mother, they lived 2 doors from us. And our first little apartment wasn't ready yet. They were still, finishing it off.
Yeah.
They had built a great big home. They turned it into 4 apartments. We dropped them off, and they were glad to get home. And we went to Deco's and had a hot dog for our reception.
Deco's.
Yeah.
Is that a... Oh.
Deco's was like a Wendy's.
Okay.
Then we went home to my house, and I've got all these brothers and sisters, and my 4 brothers slept upstairs in a great big room. They had 2 beds on this side and 2 beds on this side. Then there were 2 big rooms ran off of there. And the one big room on this side was Faith and mine, but Faith was working, so it was mine then. So Bill and I had that for our room.
Mm-hmm.
I said, gee. And then the next morning I got up and taught Sunday school. That's what young people did when they're naive and dumb. I wouldn't do that now, but oh, what the heck, that was the first thing. That was my first duty, my children. And the little boy next door was one of my students. And when I went into Sunday school, he jumped up on the table and said, this was Dickie Reed. He said, "Oh, Miss Gray is Mrs. Cook." I said, sit down. On the 2nd of the month, Grandma Cook was the nicest person. I had the best mother-in-law in the whole world. She was so sweet. She took my part over my mother. My mother favored Bill all the time. She liked Bill. But my mother-in-law was so good. When I was carrying Billy, she used to bring up an ice cream cone, and I would get up in the morning and get him off and do all the work. Every morning I'd mop the work I did that I didn't have to do. I wished I knew it all over and had that energy. Even sprinkled sheets and ironed them. Oh, what a waste of time. I'd get up and do all this work, and at 11 o'clock I'd go back to bed. And she came up one day with an ice cream cone and rang the bell, and I was in bed, of course, Oh, she said, "I'm so sorry I got you out of bed, but I brought you an ice cream cone." She was such a sweet person, but she loved that 2nd of the month. That was her payday. And then Bill supported the family until we got married. Then he had to support another one. He worked for Darling and Company. He drove a truck where they picked up dead animals from around the whole region, and they made them into tallow. And he did well there. But that's where he was working when he switched to Durez, because it was time of war, that's it. And he decided, he had 2 boys that would have kept him out of the war, but if he got in a war plant, that was even better. And they had a lot of chemical work that they were making the atom bomb and that down in Tennessee. That's why they wanted to send him to Tennessee too. He only made $12 a week, but that was a lot of money back then. There's an advantage to not having anything. You appreciate things you get more. We had an old ice box, an old couch that somebody gave us. We bought a brand new stove, and we bought a brand new bedroom outfit and a brand new kitchen stuff. And the bassinet I think somebody gave us for Billy. And we saved up $50. It was $25 for the doctor and $25 for the hospital for the first baby, and we stayed 2 weeks. But that wasn't fun the first time because it was over Christmas and New Year's, and it was my first time away from home, and oh, I cried terrible. There were some carolers came through the hall, and oh, I missed going to school. And then Bill came up with a black eye. He had cranked the stove, and instead of getting the ashes down, it came off and hit him on the eye. Of course, they made different stories about that. He was a ladies' man. And we moved on that little apartment. That's where we found Jerry and Johnny as good friends. They had a little baby boy, too, and we had Bill. And they had little Herbie. So we were friends ever since, and they're the friends that we went into after we moved a couple times. On Michigan, the roof leaked on our brand new dresser. And you know, when you're paying $1 a week for furniture, it's precious. And so Bill said, "You're not going to get this month's rent." He was very smart with the law. He was a smart egg anyhow. And so we moved out to a little old cottage on Northland. It was a rear cottage, but they used to have a swamp that ran through there, and our back shed was part of that right on the ground. And they had rats as big as cats. Well, I didn't see them. We could hear them, and they got in the walls and everything. Yeah, they even ate on the electric wire.
Jerry and I walked those steps, and I was expecting Norman. I remember all those steps and all that height and everything, and then the car broke down and we had to sleep in it. And the beans somebody ate them. That was some experience. All four of us in the car trying to sleep, and finally we had to get to near the morning. We had to get some kind of a part of the car. We lived on Northland then, because we got home as far as Northland and went to bed in the morning, and then we got up and went out to the beach house.
Norman was born while we lived on Northland. But right after Norman was born, Jerry and Johnny wanted to get a house, and so did we, and so we went together. It didn't cost too much to buy a house. We went back into the city again and bought a 2-family. And then the next time we moved was, we had the house paid for on Walker Street. Well, it isn't much when you've got 2 people paying, see? And they paid ahead. And they had a big enough down payment that Johnny and Jerry had theirs first. And they had already bought a house in the city, a single. So we lived there with other neighbors living downstairs. They rented it out to them until we were ready. But then later on, while we still lived on Walker Street, Faith's husband worked at the chemical plant, that Duraz chemical plant, and he was a supervisor there, and he got Bill a job there. He worked his way from the bottom up. Bill was not a dummy. He only went as far as 9th grade, but he had a wonderful mind. And he worked himself up to a supervisor. They wanted, at one time after we were married and lived on Walker Street, Duraz wanted to send him out to Portsmouth. So we went down to look at it. We didn't know whether we wanted to, I didn't want to move at all because I like to be near family. But he decided, well, I don't think I want to be away from my family either, so he turned the job down. They wanted him to be the superintendent of the plant down there.
Bill brought a lot of his friends home and we went out together. In fact, he brought Faith's husband, Eddie. He worked with him, and he didn't want him to know that he was Faith's brother-in-law. And the minute he saw me, he said, "Oh, you're related to Faith." He didn't want him to think he was trying to get him into the work because of family. And then Eddie himself wouldn't tell them at work out where they went to work. This was during the Second World War. He wouldn't let them tell him that Bill was his brother-in-law because they didn't like that. They getting, got to the bottle too much and fired him. But Bill went up the line real fast, so he got to the bottle. And now that house isn't there. Ray and I went back in that old neighborhood. They've ripped houses down and put different number houses up.
Oh, yeah?
That they'd have two lots together,
Oh,
Waterman's house is down. That's Sally's ex, or her husband, the Watermans. They've gone. Their house is gone. And her cousin lived up the street. It's a different neighborhood, different. Well, we moved out of there because the colors was becoming aggressive in that neighborhood. And when Bill got his little girl, he wasn't going to have her be insulted by any black people. Besides that, he didn't mind so much when the colored guys whistled at me and made remarks when I went by. I was old enough to take it, but he wasn't going to have that happen. He wasn't going to have his little girl grow up in that neighborhood.
Bill sold the house to his brother and mother because his mother and them needed a house. And he sold it real cheap to them because Johnny gave a break too. And we moved out. We were going to, he was going to build on a 5-acre place we had on Sweet Home there.
We had a little voting booth for a house. We used to go in there and make stuff, coffee and that. It was like home, but we only went out there to visit. We didn't live there at all.
Yeah.
And then Bill wanted to build this house. Oh, he had the nicest, he was good at, like Aaron. Aaron gets that naturally. My father and my husband and a lot of people in our family are inclined to be good handymen. And so Bill decided he was going to put this house up, and he drew the plan. Oh, it was the best plan I ever had. And couldn't get the material because the war was on. Couldn't get this, couldn't get that. So he decided to sell that piece of land, went way back where the thruway is now. And somebody that bought the land from him got all that land and got it cheaper. They knew that that thruway was going to go through, and when the thruway went through, they paid him a mint for that little piece of land on the end of nowhere.
Yeah.
Because the front of the lot was about 500 feet deep.
Yeah.
But it went way back.
So we bought it on Edgewood there because that one was already built.
Do you remember how much the houses cost?
Yeah, the one on Edgewood was the first one. I don't remember. I guess it was just a couple thousand for the two family. But the one on Edgewood was 5,000 something. Brand new. You know what our Edgewood one looked like? No, you didn't know us then. We had 2 big bedrooms upstairs, 2 bedrooms down, a large living room, a kitchen with a dinette, and a full cellar. And then Bill put a shed on the back. Well, we lived there for 32 years. All the kids know that as home.
He was a good man, though.